Hello, once again, Keno Mullings here, CEO and co-founder of the Mullings Group, software development agency here in Providence, Rhode Island. And I'm doing an interview from Code Extreme. So if you don't know, now you know. Code Extreme is part of Rhode Island's very first startup week, which is being run by an amazing organization called RiHub. And so for Code Extreme, here's what we're doing. We picked a company, so 16 contestants, we picked one, and we're building their app in 7 days, 7 business days. So, follow along on our channel, codeextreme.tv, and see all the cool drama that's unfolding around that. So during Code Extreme, I thought I'd interview lots of cool clients, our cool clients and our cool partners, because we are who we are because of our amazing partners. And so today I'm talking to Tino Chow. He's the head honcho, the design creative, the master genius behind Giant Shoulders, and also behind our logo. So he's the one that made me go from green to fuchsia. He promised me it's not pink. He said it's fuchsia, and I believed him. And we've stuck with it. It took a while to grow on us, but then we just fell in love with it. And we've just, the fonts that we use, that was all his working. And so much of our brand and how to articulate our brand is what Giant Shoulders did for us. So I'm just going to give him the stage to show off and tell you how great his organization is and what he can do for you. Tino.
All right, thanks, Keno. And yeah, thanks for the invite and including me in this amazing series that you're doing. And also, by the way, your logo is pink.
What? You said fuchsia. Come on, man. You tricked me.
It's the eye of the beholder.
Oh. I'm sticking with fuchsia. I'm gonna bleep out the pink. It's fuchsia.
Yeah. So yeah, well, thanks for kind of letting me maybe share a little bit about branding and particularly in the startup context. So let me just, before I jump into that, let me take a step back and talk a little bit about Giant Shoulders and myself. So Giant Shoulders is really a relatively kind of new company. It's been around for kind of 4 years. And we have just redid our branding. And I'll kind of share a little bit about my story as well, because as a startup, you end up kind of throwing a lot of pasta at the wall, kind of for the first couple of years before you really know, kind of what, how does your special sauce actually translate? Because knowing that you're special is important, but what's even more important is how does that connect with creating value for your customers and for your clients. So it took us a couple of years, and we finally kind of realized that we are too close to our own company to do our own rebranding, and we end up hiring somebody else. And I'll talk a little bit more about that story. So like I mentioned, Giant Shoulders is 4-ish. Actually, now it's 5 years old.
Yeah, you're 5. Yeah, at least 5. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a healthy amount of time.
We're the same age, roughly.
Yeah.
We're roughly the same age. Yeah.
Yeah. So I before that I was in Silicon Valley and in New York, kind of doing the stereotypical kind of digital startup kind of thing. Have a lot of failed startup background, which is all great learning experiences. At least that's what you tell yourself, right? Like it's there's always something to learn when you fail.
It's only a failure if you don't learn.
Yeah. Some of them really kind of paid for my down payment for my house, which is nice. Making Silicon Valley money while living in Rhode Island is the perfect combo. And then before that, I did a lot of work in design research for medical technology companies, and then before that, I went to RISD and also started a conference here in Rhode Island called Better World by Design, and it's, I think, still going on. I think the 13th edition was a couple weeks ago. So tremendously proud of kind of being able to kind of leave that legacy, and I have nothing to do with it now, which is also fun. And the last piece of my story that kind of really connects kind of all of it is my military background. So and kind of for a lot of people will ask me kind of the military kind of mindset and creativity is completely different. It's oil and water, which in some ways yes, but when you really understand what creatives do. It's like it's to fail a lot. It's a discipline of showing up. It's a discipline of kind of working at it and chipping away. And kind of one thing that I've found out kind of in my own career, building teams, is how that mindset or that creative mindset and the structured kind of operational mindset really can go hand in hand. How do you create space kind of for creativity to happen, and how to use kind of operational ideas and concepts and methodology to create repeatable kind of creative success. This is one of those things where, do you want to be a one-hit wonder and just do one great project and that's it? Or do you want to be able to repeat the good work that you do over and over again?
Mhm.
So that's kind of me. That's really kind of my special kind of sauce and my skill set of kind of bringing operations and creativity together and creating kind of repeatable kind of methodologies to help our clients kind of build brands that succeed in the marketplace. And I will talk a little, and I can now kind of jump into that kind of specifically for startups.
Yeah.
So maybe kind of a half of our clients would consider themselves startups or kind of early stage kind of businesses. Um, and the firstly, to sort of draw kind of a little bit of a line, is that if you are a a founder and you have an idea and you're just starting to figure out kind of whether or not there is a market for it, is there a market fit for what you're doing?
Mhm.
My advice is to spend all your energy in building kind of that product, whether not as a product or service, spend all your time in it. And if you're an early stage, a hyper early stage business, you, the founder, is the brand. Um, don't spend money on on your kind of logo, website, all those things, which basically this is what I do. But I'm telling you, if
Right.
you're a hyper early stage founder, save that energy, save that time, and work on your product. And the reason for that is that people are gonna know about your product through you. It's really how you talk about it. The more you talk to people about your product, the more you're going to hone in on your story and
Mhm.
hone in on the story that matters to your audience. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's all about reputation, and brand is a great way of managing and extending that reputation. So if you're a hyper early stage startup founder, focus on yourself, focus on your product. Don't feel like you need to hire a designer just yet, unless you have the funding. We would love to take your money. Or you are a consumer brand and you need to compete on that front. Then design is a great way of differentiating yourself.
Right.
So putting that aside with the hyper early stage founders, let's talk about kind of startups that have been around that you have found a little bit of a market fit, right? And then what? And most of the time, the companies that we work with are at that stage of asking that questions like, how do I scale this? Whatever I'm doing is not scalable, and I think that's one of the
Right.
most kind of famous advice given by the founder of Y Combinator, right? When you're young, when you're early stage, you can afford to do things that are not scalable. But
Mhm.
when you are trying to scale, now you're thinking about, okay, how do I start having other people to share the same story, to have the same emotional resonance with your brand?
Mhm.
Now you're hiring people. How do they know? How do you know that they know what the story is? And
Right.
how do you know that they know what the purpose is?
Yes.
So this is kind of where brand comes in. And I'm going to talk about brand kind of primarily from a strategy perspective, and then I'll talk a little bit about kind of graphics. But
Right.
brand at the end of the day is simply a promise you intend to keep.
Now, I ripped that line off, right? I share it
Perfect.
everywhere. It's like, yeah, Tino Chow says a brand is a promise you intend to keep. Can I say the other line for you?
Yeah. What's the other
And the
line?
product or service is that promise fulfilled.
Yes, exactly. But that's the thing. Like a lot of the people that I come across, incubators and co-working spaces, I see a lot of founders working very hard, but they've never once written down kind of what that is, what that promise is, what's that purpose is. And when it's not written down, it cannot be known by
Mm.
someone else, and especially with for someone that's on your team. And this is something that we have seen over and over again, where a team kind of grows, but the CEO remains a bottleneck for all decisions because no one is actually confident whether or not the decision they're about to make is on brand, other than checking in with the CEO.
Right.
So there is no autonomy kind of there, and you're only doing the bidding of kind of one person. And one of the things that we argue, one of our kind of strongest argument is that if your brand is a promise that you intend to keep, you need to make that known. You need to spend the time to write it down. And a lot of kind of the work that we do is helping companies at that early stage when they are starting to grow and they have like 5 people, 8 people, and they are starting to struggle of kind of like, how do I start to make on brand decisions? It seems like this might be on brand, but might not be, but how do I know?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of work that we do is to help teams like that kind of iron out kind of like what their kind of promise is, what their vision, mission, and values are, and doing kind of workshops that bring kind of all of these people together in order to develop not just a brand message externally, but more importantly, what's that internal promise, and what is a culture that kind of who are we as a community, as a company, and how do we then deliver on that promise in the future, even if a product doesn't deliver on it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really kind of a lot of work that we do, and really kind of highlighting the importance of a brand. Kind of ultimately is making firstly writing down your promise, and then secondly making it known, and thirdly empowering kind of people within your organization and sometimes partners to make on-brand decisions autonomously without the need of going through one person within the company.
Wow.
And that's a lot of times where founders get burnt out, right? You
Yeah.
seem like you're making all the decisions all the time and everything is on fire because somebody made an off-brand decision and now you have to go deal with it while you have to make other decisions. So
Right.
that's a
You
little
know,
bit rambling.
this feels like a
So
counseling session for me. I love it. Empower your
that's
team so
great.
that they can make on-brand decisions. That's my mental takeaway because I need to do that now. I'm not doing that enough. I need to do that a whole lot more. But that is powerful. I know you had an amazing exercise. Another thing I learned from you. So for you, those of you watching, Tino is an amazing teacher and instructor. His workshops are phenomenal, and well, I know you used to incorporate them into your process, and you had the MVB, right? Yeah, you hear about
Yes.
MVP, minimum viable product. We have MVB, minimum viable brand, and there's this whole brand workshop that we went through, and we went through, on for a nonprofit IEL, the full version, and we went through the light version where at the end of it was TMG and our logo and so forth. End of IEL's one, you redid our whole design, and I just remember the experience was you didn't do it for us, but you led us on this journey that helped us to arrive at a solution that we all agree that was yes, that was okay, that was good enough. Let's stick with this and see where it takes us. So, do you still
Yeah.
do that? I mean, what?
Yeah, we
Talk
do.
about that a bit.
We've really expanded on that offering because kind of for companies that are already in the market, the needs are slightly different, and also we have a lot more kind of data around we're meeting a market need and who the audiences are. So we use this we basically scale up the process that you went through kind of for companies that are maybe already in the market and are they've found their niche and they need to double down on it.
Mhm.
But if I can just talk a little bit about sort of the concepts behind kind of minimal viable brand, is basically the same as a minimal viable product, as that choose the few features
Mhm.
of your brand that really matters to your customers and really matters to you, and only focus on that.
Mhm.
And when I talk about features, is really kind of a kind of the promise that others will find a hard time kind of replicating, right?
Mhm.
If you're just promising, hey, I have just a better mousetrap, people are going to ask why you have a better mousetrap. So if you're only have a slightly more marginally kind of better kind of mousetrap, like is that actually going to take any market share kind of away from your competitors, or are you going to help convince a customer that they should kind of purchase your mousetrap? So that's kind of where kind of a minimal viable brand really comes in, is to kind of clarify those few things that are unique to you, unique to your company, and really put a giant magnifying glass kind of on you.
Right.
And the strategy is kind of built around that, and the visuals are basically built around how you're being perceived in marketplace. And once again, this is kind of one of the reasons why we ended up with Fuchsia, where we looked at all your competitors, and they are blue, maybe black.
Right.
And they kind of one of the things that we wanted to do based on the strategy that we developed is that you want to kind of turn heads. You want people to pause and ask the questions like, wait, they are different. So, and this is kind of where dressing different helps to be different. Being different and dress exactly like everyone else, you're just
Mhm.
gonna get lost in the shuffle. So how do we help you stand out and get people to ask and initiate and ask the questions like, wait a minute, how are you different?
Right. Which is interesting. You said about dress different. Like I dress different than the typical Rhode Islander. Cause and you captured that in our brand. Like you didn't say, here's your brand, no, live it. You said this is who you are. Here's your brand that reflects you. So I and it really speaks to what you said, like for early founders, you are the brand. So you captured me in a way that was powerful. I mean, the words that you used through the process was really cool. And when I said I don't know if I can do fuchsia, you're like, well, you're doing it. It's pretty much what you said. You're not asking permission. You're doing it because and all the other things kind of work as well. Someone sees fuchsia, you think, is this a woman-owned startup? But we have a lot of women in our company. Like a chunk of our team members are female, a chunk of our clients are female. So it just works. So well done. I mean, it's here to stay. We'll probably have some other things going to be splintering off. And speaking of name and
Yeah.
turning heads, so we're remember the app, that the software that builds software.
Mhm.
So now we're going into public beta, and it's called Goat SaaS, which sounds a lot like Goat's ass, but it's not. It's Goat SaaS. And again, it's that whole, we did it because, my daughter thought it was cool, and like, hey, let's go with it. And we didn't ask permission, and that's just who we are, So certainly, yeah, certainly, Tino, this is awesome time talking to you. And how can people find you? How can people hire you? Where do they go to?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is simply gs.agency. So that's our website, gs.agency. We
Mhm.
have a little chat bot. If you want to leave a message or have questions, like please, please kind of send it over our way. And also we have a pretty large insights section where we every month we write a little bit of a blog post, kind of dissecting kind of a problem, or dissecting kind of like a reason why company like yours should care about brands. So there's a lot of resources there. Yeah, definitely kind of read them. And if you have a question or if you're interested in meeting up, shoot me a note.
Yeah. So before I let you go, there's this one event that you used to do, and that we were part of your first one, and I loved it. It's you do these things. I think you describe yourself as a professional troublemaker or instigator. It's one of the ways
Yes.
you introduce yourself at the first time. And you have that look, something like I'm going to cause mischief right now, which is I think why we get along. I'll whisper the thing and you'll do it. Yeah, failure by design, I think was the name of the event. Are
Yeah.
you still doing those events?
No, unfortunately, I'm not. But we've been kind of dreaming up a new way, a new set of events to kind of create to cause trouble for next year.
Mhm.
That we're kind of code naming it Future Makers.
Okay.
And really kind of all those events were a way for us to kind of throw past at a wall and really kind of see where our tribe is, kind of who are we really speaking to. And for us, it's like a lot of our clients became partners, partners became clients, and we've realized that we're a community of future makers who are actively trying to make the future a better place. So that's an event series that we're planning on, and we are we'll hopefully be launching it in 2022.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Tina Chow, thank you so much for taking the time and hanging out with us here at Code Extreme. Tino Chow, ladies and gentlemen, giant shoulders, amazing, amazing company, amazing human being. Check them out. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Awesome.